Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Think Suburbia, the podcast of the Suburban Virginia Republican Coalition, or the SUVGOP. I'm Mike Ginsberg. I'm one of the co-hosts of the podcast and one of the co-founders of SUVGOP.
Hi there, I'm Jill Cook. I'm another co-founder of SUVGOP and the co-host of the podcast. And I want to welcome tonight's guest, Nick Clemente, who is running for the delegate in the 10th District, House of Delegates here in Virginia. This is against Wendy Goditis, who's the incumbent and who took the place of our dear friend, Randy Minshew. So welcome to the podcast, Nick.
Thank you, Jill, and thanks, Mike.
Yeah,
I'm happy to be here.
We're happy to have you. Yeah. So we're going to jump right into it. So one of the really exciting things about you as a candidate, and I know because I work with a lot of young Republicans, is you are young. You are 32. You are one of the youngest people running for the House of Delegates for the GOP this time around. So what brought you first to the Republican Party?
Well, it's the way I was raised. It was, the Republican Party was the only ticket. Some of my fondest memories growing up was my father would take us to, let's say, McDonald's. And he would say to my brother, who might be leaning a little more left, let me have your burger. And he would take a giant bite out of it. And he'd say, that's how Democrats want to take from you. They want to take a lot. And then to me, he would say, take a little bite, and he'd say, this is what Republicans want to take from you. And so it was something that was beat into us from an early age. And also just watching my father work, and he had a lot of hardships. I was the oldest, and I saw the good times and the bad times. And it's only in America that somebody like my father could fail and still then become successful. And so I think that's the Republican way of life.
Learning through your stomach. I love it.
Absolutely.
You learn quickly.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, that's great. Now, tell us a little bit about the 10th district. I mean, the district you want to represent is actually kind of an interesting district because it has some urban, suburban aspects to it, but also some very rural aspects to it.
Yeah, it's a neat little district. It's very representative of like Northern Virginia, but also America. And that was a big reason why I moved here. And then I decided to buy a house because just where I'm sitting here, 1 mile down the road, there's $1 million homes, and a mile down the other way, there's $500 a month apartments. And so it's kind of representative just in Leesburg alone of all the different demographic groups in America. And then on top of it, we have, a mile down the road that way, we have a mixed use development, which is, kind of the new rage where there's apartments and offices, which is kind of more a little bit of a city feel, and, kind of also mixed use. And so you get a little bit of everything. And then there's the suburban element down the road as well, where it's kind of houses and sidewalks and you kind of walk around, but you're nowhere near any type of commercial business. And then when you get out into Frederick and Clark County, it is rural.
Yeah.
And it's a whole different type of life. And so this district is really representative on so many different fronts of what America's like, with the rural, urban, not so much urban, but mixed use is kind of that new age urban, and suburban. And so that's what I love about it so much is, within 10 minutes, I can be kind of in a mixed use urban style environment, and 10 minutes the other way, I can kind of be out in the country. So it's a special place.
You have some of everything, but I mean, that's really nice to be, but to govern that is going to be interesting. So speaking of governing, 2021 is going to be a very interesting year here, very competitive. The Democrats also have a very competitive set of races going on. But they've had all the powers in Richmond for quite a while. But they don't seem to be doing much in the way of actually helping Virginia residents on the challenges, the vaccine rollout, failure, schools not opening, all that kind of stuff. So what do you think the consequences of one-party rule have been in your area this year?
Well, I think that's a great question. And one of the things that, one-party rule has been bad, not because of just one party having it, because we had one party rule, and I think we did a pretty fair job business wise, and the economy was great. The type of Democrats who have taken over, unfortunately, they're not the Southern Democrats of yesteryear, where they were, kind of moderate, fiscally conservative Democrats. A lot of these guys, they're completely off the reservation. Just last week, or 2 weeks ago now, we had a virtual legislative day, and I was talking to one of the leaders of the Democratic Party about, in a public forum, about project labor agreements. And his defense to not knowing the answer was, I have a 3-year-old and 18-month-old behind me, and I can't hear you. And it was kind of like, okay, so the virtual environment has kind of given them cover for not knowing even what they're pushing through. And they're bought and paid for by environmentalists who have their own agenda, and the trade unions, which just today, right to work is kind of a sacred thing in Virginia. It's why Amazon came here, and it's why we have such a great economy. And today they're trying to jam it through the House, and so that they're out of touch, and they're just not even steeped in reality. It is what it is. I mean, there's some of them who are, a little bit more in touch, but ultimately the ones who are in touch somewhat, now you see that they're not liberal enough, and they're being primaried. And so there's 7 of the ones who were, for one reason or another, kind of got business a little bit, and all 7 of them are being primaried. And so it's forcing some of the reasonable ones to go further to the left. And that's what's scary, is that their one-party rule has been kind of, it's like a mob rule, where it's kind of the loudest 10% are controlling their party. And that's something we got to step up and fight against.
Definitely.
Right. Yeah. One of the things that sort of, and I think you put this pretty well, is a disconnect, that the Democrats' governing priorities seem to be disconnected from the immediate problems facing the Commonwealth. And they spent a lot of time, just one example, the passage of the Virginia Clean Economy Act last year, and the pushing for the Green New Deal this year. We have a pandemic, we have economic dislocation at, crisis proportions. And rather than, say, working on the vaccine rollout, or minimizing the dislocation to business, Democrats seem, laser focused on ramming their ideological hobby horses home, existing conditions be damned. Is that something that you think that we can, ride to in this 2021 election year?
I think so, but one of the things that I think as a party that we've done a little misguided is we fight emotions, their emotion, because they make emotional arguments with facts. And in the public discourse, emotion is always going to trump facts. And we can, just because we have facts doesn't mean we can't emotionalize them. And so the Clean Economy Act, who doesn't want a clean economy? All right. But the fact of the matter is that this clean economy bill that they want to push through is going to raise taxes on the very people who they claim to be helping, the middle class, the people who in my district elected them and sent them, my opponent, to Richmond, and who all through Northern Virginia, yes, people make a good living here, but cost of living is also high. So the margins are thinner. And, they say they're for small business, but then Clean Economy Act, it raises, as you all know, it raises utility bills. And so what about the mom and pop store that's trying to keep their doors open? Well, their utility bills are also going to go up. And so between that and, the big union push, I mean, this is all going to raise taxes on the very people that are struggling, and also put them in power. And so I think, to answer your question a long about way, is it's all about messaging and how we emotionally appeal that. And if we emotionally appeal their bills as special interest bills for the special interest, not the interests of the people who are going to be paying the price of whether it be project labor agreements or, the Green New Deals. I mean, that's going to be fronted by us. And so it's really out of touch. It affects minority groups that they claim to be fighting for. It affects small businesses,
And
everyone, really.
exactly. And speaking of that, we were going to get to that, but let's focus a little bit on the consequences of the energy policy and the Green New Deal. Not only the economic just devastation, but the land devastation. I mean, I don't know why people on the other side think solar energy and all that is just beautiful roses and nothing gets destroyed. I mean, it's going to destroy a lot of farmland and forest, and it's going to create toxic waste.
Yep.
And these are the people that purport to be big environmentalists. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, the thing is that I think the people who are pushing for this are, they call themselves environmentalists, but they're really not environmentalists. And that's why I said that the goal of having a clean economy is a valid one. But the people who are kind of pushing this are more trying to line their special interests with solar panels and and all that stuff. And so what I think is with certain groups in the environmental camp, we can actually work with them on this to defeat stuff like that, because solar panels, then when they're done, they're hard to get rid of, and it creates a whole nother environmental problem. And trees are really that's the best thing for the environment.
Right.
And so there's different groups within their house of cards in this movement that will be opposed to this. And that's what gets to my point of how you message something, and you can get a lot of support with the right messaging and the right emotional appeals. And so I think you guys have done a good job on that and really kind of touched on that.
That's a great and an interesting point, because it highlights, the possibility for, bipartisanship, to lead to progress. That
Yeah.
there are opportunities where, we could come together with folks we might not always agree with, but have, common interests in particular areas. Are there areas that you think that, there is an opportunity for, a Republican, especially a young Republican and a first time, God willing, a first time elected official? Are there areas where you can see sort of possibilities for bipartisanship and reaching across the aisle on particular issues?
To be honest, I think collective bargaining agreements, because that there are Democrats who get the message that you can't be saying that we're for police reform and then want to unionize the police. Because if you look at what's happening across the country, one of the first things that they talk about in police reform is take away the power from the police union. Yet these Democrats here in Virginia are saying, oh, no, we believe in police reform, but hey, we want to unionize the police. And so to me, that doesn't make any sense, because I truly believe that giving a union control over the police force is not a way to do good community policing and work with the community on issues, because it takes the power to discipline people who are not good cops. Most 99.999% of cops are good and there for a good reason, but in every group there's bad apples. And so, we don't have that problem here in Virginia as severely as they have in Minnesota, because if somebody in Loudoun County demonstrates bad behavior, well, there's checks and balances on that. Whereas in Minnesota, the union will fight for you regardless of what you do, and because you're a dues paying member. And so we have to work with across the aisle to educate people on that. And I think that is, I've been going out and having that conversation, and people, kind of a light bulb goes off in their head. It's like, why are they trying to get rid of the sheriff's office? Oh, they're trying to unionize the police in Loudoun. So, yeah, I'd rather have an elective sheriff who we as the voters get to decide whether or not he's doing a good job policing, than have a union boss who is beholden to no one but himself.
We're with you on that. We agree with you on that. Excellent point. That is a very good point. Yeah.
So I think there's ways to work with not only Democrat legislators on that, but also on community activists and going and just showing up and listening, but then saying, hey, this is my thought. What are your thoughts on this? And so that's what I hope to accomplish in the next few months.
Excellent. A couple of very specific questions about issues going on right now. School openings. I mean, they have failed miserably at this. I saw just today, I think the Fairfax County School Board has reversed and said they want to open school. And
I don't know in Fairfax. They said that in Loudon, though.
It is in Fairfax, yeah.
Fairfax
February
too.
16th.
They've done that and rescinded it before. So what do you think about that?
Not to keep going back to my favorite enemy, but the unions. I mean, people act like we don't have unions here, but we do. They just don't have collective bargaining, which is where that slippery slope becomes. Because it's hard to punish a bad teacher or a bad cop, when they have collective bargaining. A bad public sector employee. And so the unions, Fairfax County Teachers Union, their Twitter feed has been a gold mine for why unions are bad. And because I've talked to a bunch of younger teachers, and newsflash, they want to be in the classroom. And it's the older, not all older teachers, but it's the more entrenched union teachers who want to, not go to work. But the crazy thing is that we are all, so many of us are going to work. Grocery store workers are going to work. First responders are going to work. Construction workers are going to work. Everybody's going to work except the teachers. And so for me, that is a union power grab. And the teachers unions are some of the more adept ones at, this really just straight up deceit, because they call themselves the Educators Association. And I see the president of the whole union on television all the time talking about why the teachers can't be in school, but we can't have a functioning economy when the kids aren't in class. And for me, as somebody who grew up with learning disabilities, at first I kind of got it. Okay, teachers shouldn't be at school, but it quickly changed for me, because I started thinking about, okay, I have ADD, I have dyslexia. As a child, how I wouldn't be I was already behind, and so now I wouldn't even be learning. And if 1 in 5 kids are dyslexic, I mean, talk about the hurdles that those kids are going to have to overcome. And all the studies are showing that minority communities are really falling behind because of the at-home learning. And so once again, the Democrats and the unions, the very people they claim to want to help, they're hurting. And so that is a big reason why I'm running, is to get the kids back in school, but at the same token, help ensure that the teachers are vaccinated so they can't have an excuse not to go to work, or the union can't have an excuse for them not to go to work.
That's an excellent combined point. I love that, with the vaccine failure in the schools. And I just want to say, I'm very happy that you have overcome and dealt with your learning disabilities too. That is you're a living example of why we need to have these programs in the schools. So
absolutely,
thank you for sharing that. I mean, that was
absolutely
very good.
Well, and then just one last thing, I think this whole debacle has really highlighted the value of school choice, which is something I'm a proponent of, just because my dyslexia, just Fairfax County, where I was going to school at the time, couldn't meet my needs. My parents had to send me and pay for me to go to a dyslexic school where I learned how to read. And so I think this has really made it front and center, the value of school choice.
Excellent. Another excellent point. Yeah.
We have just a couple more minutes. But I guess, if I know you're running against Wendy Goditis, is there anything about her particular record? What was it that, she's done that you would say really requires a challenge?
Oh, wow. That's a laundry list of things. But
bad question for just a couple minutes left, right?
Well, for example, we have a lot of people in the district who are out of work, and that's because of what policy she has advocated for. We have kids who aren't in school, who are struggling, and at the end of the day, she is, rather than come and help out in the community, she's doing horse jumps on her horse farm, and so I think she is out of touch with the struggles of the community, and the thing about me is that I learned that at a young age that perseverance and believing in oneself is the way you can overcome, because the mind is a powerful tool, and so more so than what she's doing, the reason why I want to run is I know people are struggling, and I want to share my story of hope and inspiration, and I think that that is something as a party we haven't done well, not just at the local and state level and the national level, all across the board. Yet we have people like John Ossoff down in Georgia running around talking about how inspirational he is, but he hasn't done anything inspirational. Everything has come easy for him. And so I think that message, to answer a lot of your questions, is outside of the issues speak for what will I do as a legislator, but the why and why I'm challenging her is to motivate and inspire kids, most importantly in all, to believe in themselves and know that there's a light at the end of the tunnel and to not give up.
That's an excellent message. And that, like you said, that's an emotionally charged message too. That really appeals to the heart, and the mind, both. I have to say, we usually ask at the very end, any like personal hobbies, but before you get into that, what you like to do. I loved your cat up on the shelf. I'm a cat lover and a cat owner. Your cat was there for a while and then came down. So we have that in common. But what do you like to do when you're not starting your political career?
Well, before all of this, I used to like to work out a lot. And so I was kind of, when I do something, I have to do it like at a 10 on a scale 1 to 10. I was always a 10. And so I used to like obsessively work out for several hours. It's how I got through the first part of the pandemic.
Wow.
So now I don't have as much time to do that. So that is a big hobby. I also like to read. There's a great series of books I read. Once again, don't have much time for that now these days either, but it's called like Short Introduction to, and it's all these subjects. And so I would read those subjects and different subjects. And then at the back, they have for more further research. And so a grad school professor showed me one. And so through that, the one topic that I got really interested in is the one Introduction to Geopolitics. And so that is like kind of in my free time, and Wikipedia is like a rabbit hole for me.
Yep.
But I lately in my free time, I've been really fascinated by what's going on in Burma, and I've been trying to understand that. I've also kind of got lost in the opposition leader in Russia, what's going on there. And a few months prior, I was like all focused on what's going on in Ethiopia, which kind of has a special place in my heart because my younger sister is adopted from Ethiopia. And so for me, I read a book called How to Win Friends and Gain Influence by Dale Carnegie, and being well read and being able to talk about things that people care about is a great way to develop a relationship. And once again, another reason why I moved to this district and moved to the Loudoun County. I've been back and forth between Loudoun over the years, but bought a house here is because of that diversity. And so this district is not only diverse in terms of race, but nationality. And so my hobby, I think, of following foreign affairs, there's a lot of people who moved here for a better life in this district and believe in the American dream, and being well versed in what's going on in their birth country, I think is a good hobby. So that's kind of what I do: run and think about politics and read.
Excellent qualities in a legislator. Very well rounded. I love it. Yeah. So, Mike.
Yeah, so I think we've reached probably close to the end, but you have if somebody wanted to get involved with your campaign, where would they go to get more information about you or get involved?
My website's nickclemente.com, and then my emails, send me an email. It's nick.clemente216@gmail.com. And the website, you can set up a Zoom. But email me and we'll find a time to talk. I'm in the car a lot and I don't like any dead time. And now that my Washington football team, is out of the playoffs, I can't listen to sports radio anymore. So I like to make phone calls in my car. So
I guess
I'm
you have
happy to talk to anyone. And I think that's important because a delegate is supposed to be the one office closest to the people. And I just want to be available, not only now during the campaign, but once I get into office as well, because I think that's another thing that our incumbent does not do well. She does not respond to her constituents. And so I want to demonstrate now over the next 9 months that you're going to have a 180 on someone who will care about your needs and be responsive regardless of what it is. Even if you just want to vent to someone, that's what I'm here for.
accessibility. That's excellent. I love that. Yeah. Well, thank you for this time together. It's been really great talking to you again. And, hopefully we'll have a chance to talk to you further along the line.
Absolutely. I'm always available and you guys know where to find me.
Yes,
And if anyone reaches out to you, please feel free to connect them to me as well.
excellent. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. We will do that. Really appreciate you joining us. This was great. It's really great to get to know more about you and your campaign. And I think I'm very impressed, and I really look forward to seeing your campaign as it takes off over the year.
Absolutely. And then, at another point, I'd love to talk to you about all your baseball campaign there.
Not the Red Sox. You don't want to talk about the Red Sox?
Well, I like the Red Sox. Once I actually sat on top of the Green Monster.
Did you?
Oh, wow.
It was the experience of a lifetime. And me and my friend, we decided one summer that we were going to hit up from here, all the stadiums on the East Coast. So we went to Philadelphia, the old Shea Stadium, old Yankee Stadium, Fenway Park.
Fenway, of course.
It was Camden Yards, but that was kind of like on the way home, and Philadelphia. So we saw it all, and it was a great experience. But by far the coolest stadium was Fenway Park. But I haven't been to Wrigley yet, so
that's fun too. That is fun. We were in Chicago. It's a fun stadium too. So.
Yeah.
And the coolest one, though, those are history monuments. So I like going them for a different reason. So they have a different place in the ranking. But the coolest part, like just from a experience of seeing cool things, I guess, and being close to the water, is the San Francisco Giants.
I haven't been. I'll have to make it on my list sometime.
It is beautiful. But StubHub lies to you, and when you buy a ticket, you can easily get obstructed view, and it's more deceptive than Fenway Park when they tag the seats as
Right.
And so but it is a great park to go to, but bring a jacket even if you're there in July, because I learned the hard way. But it's a great park. I highly suggest it.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Thank you.
Well, thank you again for joining us. Really do appreciate it. And
I enjoyed it as well, and I appreciate all your time. And I'm honored that you guys thought people would want to hear from me. So thank you for that.
Heck yeah. No, we do appreciate you taking the time to speak to us. And if you enjoyed this podcast, I guarantee you'll like all the podcasts we have at our SUV GOP website, SUVGOP.com. Just go to the website, go to the drop-down menu, and find SUVGOP's podcasts. All of them are there. We really love doing this, and we're going to be doing a lot of them this year because we've got a lot of great candidates. And really, this is a great way to start off the 2021 year. So thank you to everybody, and we look forward to seeing and chatting with you again on the next edition of Think Suburbia.